Okay, so let's talk about plastic. All that single-use plastic we all end up with. Takeout containers, coffee pods, those flimsy forks that seem to multiply in your drawer. It's so convenient. But it feels kind of bad. And then there's the whole microplastics thing.
Yeah, microplastics are a big concern.
Yeah.
And not just for the environment. They're turning up everywhere, from the ocean to our food. We're just starting to learn about how they could affect us.
It is kind of unsettling. What if there was a company trying to solve this problem? Not with a so-so solution, but something really innovative.
Well, that's where PlantSwitch comes in. They want to create a real alternative to plastic, the compostable alternative. And they might have actually figured it out.
I'm listening. What makes PlantSwitch different from all the other bioplastic companies?
It's how they make their product. They designed it to work with the equipment that already exists. So companies can switch from regular plastic to PlantSwitch's bioplastic without buying new machines. They don't even need to build new factories.
So it's not just the material. It's about making it easy for companies to use it.
Exactly. It gets rid of one of the biggest problems of going green. Like if a company that makes forks could just use their same equipment to make compostable forks.
That makes a lot of sense. But honestly, how many times have we seen eco-friendly products that just aren't as good? You know what I mean? Paper straws that fall apart in your drink, biodegradable bags that rip if you look at them wrong.
I know what you mean. People are skeptical for a reason. But PlantSwitch says their products work just as well as regular plastic. You don't have to pick between convenience and being good to the planet. You can have both.
So how do they prove that? Do they have studies? Or is it just marketing?
They do have research to back it up. But there's this story I read that was really funny. They had some guy try out a PlantSwitch fork. This guy loved plastic utensils. And he's surprised. He kept saying, I like it. I like it. It just shows that even a simple test can tell you a lot about a product.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes you just need to try it for yourself. But I'm curious about the actual process. How do you turn farm waste into something that feels like plastic?
It's a cool process. They take leftover stuff like corn stalks and wheat straw, things that would usually get thrown away. They grind it up into a powder, and then they mix that with other plant-based stuff.
So it's like turning trash into forks.
Exactly. And the best part is they can use the same machines that make regular plastic to make this stuff. It's like recycling in a whole new way.
Okay, so we know PlantSwitch is different. They're focused on making a quality product, and they figured out how to make it all work with what we already have. But let's talk about the main thing, compostability. They say these products can break down in just a few months out in nature. How is that even possible?
That's where the science gets really wild. PlantSwitch's products are designed to be broken down by tiny living things, like bacteria and fungi. They're already out there in the environment.
So basically nature just recycles it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
These little decomposers, they eat the bioplastic and turn it into compost and water and carbon dioxide. It all goes back into the earth. And because they're using plants, it happens really fast. We're talking months, not hundreds of years like regular plastic.
That's amazing. So does that mean it only breaks down in a compost facility? What happens if a PlantSwitch fork ends up in a landfill?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge for any company making stuff that breaks down naturally. These products need the right conditions to biodegrade, like oxygen and moisture and all those little microorganisms. Landfill isn't really the best place for that.
So it's not like it just disappears no matter what?
No, unfortunately not. But even if it does end up in a landfill, it's still way better than regular plastic,
Yeah.
which can last for thousands of years. And all that time, it's breaking down into those microplastics we were talking about.
I see. So compostability is a big step in the right direction, but it's not a free pass to just throw things away wherever. We still have to be responsible. Let's change gears for a second. We've been talking about forks, but I know PlantSwitch is doing more than that. I saw cups and coffee pods on their website. What else can they make with this stuff?
Now that's where it gets exciting. There's so many possibilities. Just imagine all those single-use plastic things we use all the time. They could all be replaced with something that breaks down naturally. It could totally change how we think about the stuff we use every day.
A world without all that plastic waste. That's a pretty amazing thought. How do we get there? What are the big things PlantSwitch needs to overcome to make this happen?
Well, a lot of it comes down to what people think. People need to know that these products really are as good as plastic. There's this idea that eco-friendly stuff isn't as good.
Yeah, like you're giving something up to help the planet.
Exactly. That's why it's so important that PlantSwitch is focusing on making quality products. They're trying to make something that's just as good as plastic, not just good enough. And that's what sets them apart. They're not asking you to settle. They're offering a real alternative.
So they're not just making a new material, they're trying to change how we think about sustainability.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They're challenging us to rethink things, and that's just the beginning. We haven't even talked about how this could affect the economy or global trade.
You're right, there's so much more to this. We'll be back in the next part to keep exploring PlantSwitch and what they're doing.
It's going to be interesting. So, welcome back. Before we really dig into PlantSwitch and bioplastics, we were talking about how they're tackling those big concerns about eco-friendly products.
Yeah.
Whether they're actually as good as the regular stuff. But now, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about the science behind it all.
Okay, so Bioplastics 101, what are they exactly, and what makes them different from the plastic we all know?
Well, at their core, both regular plastics and bioplastics are polymers. That just means they're made up of these long chains of molecules. The difference is where those molecules come from and what happens to them when we're done with them.
So regular plastic comes from fossil fuels, right?
Right.
Oil and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Petroleum, which is a limited resource. It takes millions of years to form. Bioplastics, on the other hand, they come from renewable sources, like plants. That's what PlantSwitch uses.
So instead of digging up old carbon, we're using plants that are already part of the natural cycle.
That's the idea.
If bioplastics are so good, why haven't we been using them all along?
There have been some issues. The early versions weren't always that great. They weren't as strong or as flexible as regular plastic, and they couldn't handle heat or water very well. Plus, they were harder to make, so they cost more.
It sounds like PlantSwitch is figuring all that out, though.
Oh, yeah. They're using this special blend of plant-based polymers. One of them is PLA. That's short for polylactic acid. It comes from plant starch. And they mix that with other bio-based stuff to make it strong and flexible.
So they're not just using any old plants.
Nope. They're choosing the right stuff for the job.
What about compostability? We talked about how these things break down in a few months. But how does that actually work?
Well, it's all thanks to these tiny little helpers, microorganisms, like bacteria and fungi. They live in compost piles and other places with lots of organic stuff.
They eat the bioplastic.
Exactly. They break it down into simpler stuff, like compost, water, and carbon dioxide. All those things go right back into the environment. It's a closed loop.
That's pretty wild. Are there certain types of bacteria that are really good at this?
That's what scientists are trying to figure out.
Right.
They're studying all the different microbes in compost, trying to find the ones that are best at breaking down different bioplastics. They're even trying to speed up the whole process.
So there's a whole world going on under a microscope. But what about landfills? We talked about how those aren't the best for this kind of stuff. What if a PlantSwitch product ends up in the trash?
Landfills aren't really made for composting. They don't have enough oxygen or moisture. And those are important for the little decomposers. So a PlantSwitch product might break down in a landfill, but it could take a really long time.
So it's still important to put things in the right place.
Absolutely. We
Yeah.
can't just throw things away and expect them to disappear.
It makes you think about how important it is to teach people about this stuff. If people don't know how to dispose of these products properly, it won't matter that they're compostable.
I totally agree. Companies need to make it clear how to use their products, and people need to pay attention.
It's a team effort. It's not just about making new materials. It's also about composting and education.
It's a big challenge, but it's really exciting too. Learning about all this has given me hope.
Me too.
And what's really cool about PlantSwitch is they're thinking about the whole system, not just the product itself. They're working with composting facilities. They're teaching people how to use their products. And they're even trying to come up with new ways to make their products break down even faster.
So they're not just trying to sell a product. They're trying to change the world. This has been so interesting. But we're not done yet. In the next part, we're going to zoom out a little and talk about what this could all mean for the bigger picture, like the economy and global trade. What would happen if this really takes off?
It's going to be a fascinating conversation.
So we've talked about how PlantSwitch is making bioplastics, how it works, how they're trying to make it mainstream. But what I'm really curious about is the big picture. Like, if this really takes off, what could it mean for the whole world?
No, that's where it gets really exciting.
Yeah.
This isn't just about making better forks or coffee pods. This could change everything.
Okay, so what kind of changes are we talking about?
Think about the economy. If PlantSwitch becomes the big name in bioplastics, it's going to create a huge demand for those materials. All that farm waste we talked about, suddenly it's not waste anymore. It's valuable.
So you're saying this could be good for farmers, create new jobs, maybe even help us move away from fossil fuels?
Exactly. And moving away from fossil fuels, well, that changes the whole game. Right now, the plastic industry is tied to oil and gas. We rely on certain countries for that.
And that makes us vulnerable.
Exactly. But if bioplastics become the norm, it shakes things up. Countries with a lot of agriculture could become the new leaders.
So PlantSwitch's idea, it's like a domino effect. It could change the economy, global trade.
It's disruptive innovation, and it's not just about money and politics. It's about our relationship with the planet. Imagine a world with way less plastic pollution, where the things we use every day are made from stuff that can go back to the earth naturally.
It's a great vision, but it's going to be a long road to get there. What are the biggest challenges for PlantSwitch and for anyone trying to create this compostable future?
People need to buy in, like we talked about before.
Yeah.
There's still that skepticism about eco-friendly products. PlantSwitch is tackling that by making quality stuff. But it takes time to change people's minds.
We're creatures of habit. It's hard to give up something that's easy and familiar.
Exactly. So education is key. Companies have to explain why these products are good, not just for the planet, but for people too.
Right. It has to be good for everyone. But it's not just about what people buy. What about governments? What can they do to help?
Governments have a big role to play. They can make it easier for companies to do the right thing, like giving tax breaks or funding research. And they can make rules about plastic to make it less appealing.
So it's about creating the right conditions for change.
Exactly. Making it clear that the future is sustainable.
This is a lot to think about. It's going to take all of us working together. Companies, consumers, governments.
It's a challenge,
Hmm?
but it's also an amazing opportunity. Imagine a world without plastic pollution, where everything is made from renewable resources, where our economy is built on things that are good for the planet.
It's inspiring. Learning about PlantSwitch has made me feel hopeful.
Me too. It shows that we can find solutions.
It's a reminder that we all have a part to play. Even small choices can make a difference.
Absolutely. We're not just along for the ride. We create the future.
That's a great way to put it. Well, that's about all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into bioplastics and the possibility of a compostable future. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and let's all work together to build that better world.
Please like this video and subscribe to our channel. For more detail, you can visit our blog website www.evergreentechtips.com.